aesthetic refinement. So that was a great privilege, and I today pay homage to Tatung Tulku for the breadth and the profundity of his contributions to the Dharma in the West and globally. And I thank Ron very much for his introduction to me. I've known Ron for over 30 years, and it's been great having him at my side. I'd like to begin today with an invocation to the Buddha mind, the innate primordial state of every conscious being, whether past, present, or future. We take refuge in this, the Buddha mind, the totality of non-dual awareness. We will rely on this during this meeting. We take refuge in everything that transports us into this, the all-pervasive Buddha mind. We take refuge in everyone, no matter who they are, since deep within, everyone is infused and pervaded by Buddha mind, no matter how they appear, behave, or manifest. Right now, during this meeting, we have an opportunity to experience the flows and contours of Buddha mind. In fact, now is the only opportunity we have to open into Buddha mind. We can never open into it in the past, obviously. It never happens in the future. Nothing ever happens in the future. It's only ever now, in this instant, that can't be grasped, can't be slowed down, can't be accelerated. Since the Buddha mind, the totality, is unstructured and contentless, nothing can obstruct it. Nothing can hinder our opening into it, becoming it in this very moment. There's nothing for us to do and nothing for us to know in order to open into Buddha mind. So settling into Buddha mind, we allow all sense of duality to dissolve of its own accord. Resting in natural great ease, we share this primordial space of effortless being. Through this practice of non-practice, may we live from the ground of being with uncontrived compassion, resting without distraction. Nothing can dislodge us because we aren't located anywhere. May this recognition of non-dual Buddha mind arise in this very instant, in the mind streams of all beings throughout the universe. May it never waver or vanish. May Buddha mind, the essence of the universe, reverberate unceasingly throughout the cosmos. So thank you. So I thought before we start today's meeting, it's useful to go back to the basics of Buddhism. I think it's a useful reminder at the beginning of any presentation, and especially one where people bring a wholehearted commitment to a meeting, to recall that no one can ever give us what we want. It's the second noble truth, that desire is the source of suffering. It's what it means. What it really means is that no one can ever give us what we want. No one can give us what we want when it's not happening. It's impossible. We only ever want what's not happening. When what is happening, nothing else can be happening. And so no one can give others what they want. Others can't give us what we want. Strange, given that desire is the modus operandi for how we live our lives. So in this meeting, I'm going to talk more than I usually would. Usually I interact, I speak for a few minutes and then interact. But I know at this meeting there are many people who don't know me, don't know my work. There are many people here who do, faces I recall, know very well. So I would like to talk more than usual, in part because this is not what you might expect it to be. This will, as we move into it, become more like a laboratory rather than a presentation. So I'll talk for about 30 minutes and then open things up for dialogue. I'd also like to point out to you that there's nothing new in what I'm sharing with you. This is effectively a recycling, I wouldn't even say a reworking, a recycling of the Prajna Paramita tradition of Buddhism that arose 2,000 years ago. There's really not one original thought in this, thankfully. And if there was, you could be worried, should be worried. I invite you to relate to this event as a construction, as an assemblage, which it is. An assemblage of complex individuals who have come together to explore the spiritual path and the question of practice in relationship to the ultimate objective, abiding in the totality, the Buddha mind. Everything we experience, the entire course of our lives, everything, in fact, is lived through the functioning of dualistic thinking. Every moment of suffering, every instant of pleasure, everything we think, feel, and sense is conditioned by dualistic ways of experiencing ourselves and the world. Thinking and interpreting is only possible because we have created contrasts, good and bad, inside and outside, evolved and unevolved, fast and slow, visible and invisible, caused and uncaused, effort and no effort, easy and difficult, free and trapped, samsara and nirvana, self and others. These are the reference points that let us make sense of the world. Everything we do from a spiritual point of view is a product of dualistic thinking. How we meditate, what we read, the friends we make, the teachings we attend, the lifestyle we follow, our reflections on the nature of reality. Dualities shape how we engage in spiritual work, how we interpret the path, how we think about and experience the results of practice. Dualities shape spiritual experiences, including most of the experiences we think of as non-dual. So because this is a construction, constructed in thought through our individual and collective frameworks of interpretation, This conditioned experience can be deconstructed, and that's part of what we'll be doing today. We'll be looking at the constructions that shape our experience moment by moment, and we'll undo them by seeing through them. To the extent that we're dismantling our constructions, we'll be using a more Mahayana style of Vipassana inquiry. But we'll also come at this from another angle, from what's sometimes called the results level, in which we discover that we can just be here, in this, in the ineffable, in the unconditioned space, without doing anything. It just descends on us in some way. It's just here for no reason. You could say this is more of a Dzogchen, a Maha'ati approach, in which constructions just dissolve, they auto-liberate, revealing primordial awareness, the Rigpa. My own practice and what I teach is a fusion of those two approaches, and I'll try and give you the flavor of this today. These two approaches will also give us rich material for dancing in the paradox of practice and no practice. We'll see how there's no necessary contradiction between these two seemingly opposite approaches to realizing Buddha mind. We will be exploring the central question of what needs to be done or not done to realize the nature of mind as pure awareness. We'll be exploring this in my introduction and our conversation. Our conversations will also give us opportunities to explore related paradoxical constructs. For example, effort versus no effort, the question of whether realization is sudden or gradual, whether Buddha mind is something or nothing, whether there is a self or no self in the realized space. All or some of these questions may weave their way into our conversation. We will be exploring these questions not through my ideas and your ideas, but through the transparent lens of pure awareness. We will be looking at what's happening, particularly in terms of what's happening in our mind. Is it constructing something? Are things being deconstructed? Is a type of dissolving happening? Or are we in a place of abiding, going nowhere, doing nothing, needing nothing? And we will be looking at that as we're doing it, as it's happening. For some people, it might sound a little presumptuous that we can engage with this event in this meeting at an ultimate level, but I'm sure we can do this. Perhaps not immediately, but within a few steps. I sense there's a lot of brain power here that can produce a steady stream of prapancha, dualistic thought. So from time to time, we might have to make some leaps as well as just small steps. But I'm sure you can let go of your thoughts and ideas about practice and no practice for some minutes at a time and use Buddha mind as our reference, as the source for how we explore these central issues. So, where do we begin? Well, that's an interesting assumption to start with, that there's a beginning. Of course, at the relative level, we've already begun. We're here, we're moving. That's not so interesting. That's obvious, taken for granted. Today, we're looking at how things function at the level of Buddha mind. Well, at the level of Buddha mind, there's no beginning, since there's nothing happening that wasn't happening. And there's nothing that wasn't happening that slowly or suddenly begins to happen. In other words, Buddha mind isn't a process. It's not something happening in time. As a contentless space of pure reflexivity, there's no structure in this that lets us say we've begun. There's no beginning to this. Also, likewise, there's nothing happening that lets us conclude we haven't begun. Since no thought, no experience or feeling is excluded from this, from the totality, we can't conclude that because we think we aren't yet in Buddha mind, that we aren't, since those are just passing thoughts. Thinking this is or isn't Buddha mind are just fractionally different thoughts that have no meaning in relationship to Buddha mind, which has no meaning embedded in it, in the sense that there's nothing happening within it from which we can extract meaning. If you're a little confused with what I'm saying at the moment, that is not a problem. It simply means that your thoughts are moving in a way that lets you put the label confusion on them. But your thinking is unrelated to Buddha mind. Remember, Buddha mind is non-conceptual. It doesn't matter what you're thinking. You might be thinking wholesome thoughts, unwholesome thoughts. Your thoughts might be clear, confused, but they are equally unrelated to this. Okay, let's slow down a minute and see what's happening. Remember, I said this is like a laboratory. What I'm doing is that from time to time, I'm engaging with you from the perspective of unconditioned awareness. This is no different than what the Prajna Paramita discourses do. They dismantle the concepts and themes they introduce, knowing that the listener could easily hang on to them and reify them. So I invite you to listen in a way that goes beyond trying to make sense of this, because we can't make sense of this. This is a mystery. It's non-sensory, non-conceptual, and yet inseparable from our embodied existence. So what's needed now is to bring a discernment to our experience, particularly in terms of observing if we're confined to our conditioned minds. We'll also see how we can find ourselves in unconditioned awareness, either for no reason at all, or we might think that it comes as a blessing or as a function of some activity, such as pointing to the nature of mind or dissolving dualistic thinking. While we usually converse at a dualistic level, today our conversation, our dance together, will be informed by non-duality. Out of this, we'll discover a new way of thinking, new way of being that can reveal the pure nature of mind. I'll just quote here from Subhuti, a great disciple of the Buddha, known for his expertise and skill in communicating emptiness. He says, to reason about uncreated reality is just to play with words. Yet from this coherent play, lightning bolts flash forth as Gnostic intuition, totally insubstantial, not coming into being even for an instant, yet diamond sharp and clear. So our dance mightn't be as spectacular as what we can find in the Prajna Parameter, but we can explore ways of sharing and communicating that are more revelatory than descriptive, revealing this rather than talking about it. Quite a lot is potentially at stake in this conversation, depending on how seriously we take it. Our beliefs about how cessation occurs shape our relationship to practice. Cessation, or nirodha, is a critical concept in Buddhism that's been heavily debated over the centuries. Dualistically, it means the cessation of suffering, dukkha, or the cessation of conceptual proliferation, prapancha. From a non-dual perspective, there is no cessation nor any absence of cessation. Cessation is the realization that when consciousness is unconditioned, there is no stopping or starting of anything. Because cessation has no characteristic, it isn't the absence of suffering. As the Heart Sutra says, there is no suffering, nor is there a cessation of suffering. This is worth taking in because we're often only interested in the first part of this insight in the perfect wisdom. What we want is the elimination of suffering. But the Heart Sutra goes on to say that in perfected non-dual wisdom, there is no suffering, but also there is no elimination of suffering. So how do we understand this? Heart Sutra is a non-dual teaching in its purity. It doesn't gloss over things, doesn't beat around the bush. It doesn't tell us what we might like to hear, even though when we read it, we parse it through our preferences. The Heart Sutra is saying that when we abide in the space of pure, contentless awareness, there is no suffering. Whatever we call suffering can't be found. It doesn't exist. And because it can't be found, we don't know what it is that can't be found. We no longer have a reference point for that oh so familiar experience of suffering that we think we've known and experienced so many times in our life. But here we are in non-dual awareness. We simply cannot access the pain that we're sure was happening at those times. Something was happening, it must have been, but we don't know what it was. So what does the Heart Sutra teach us about the path? One thing is clear: trying to eliminate suffering isn't a gateway into non-dual awareness. Let's return to the place of practice. At one extreme, we find people who think that practice is unnecessary. People rationalize that all practice is counterproductive because it confirms, either consciously or unconsciously, that we haven't arrived. We haven't achieved our desired goal of liberation or becoming a bodhisattva or a Buddha. We prolong the path every time we think there's more to do. Practice is thought to delay, to prolong realizing our objective of being complete in the moment, living in the totality. However, this way of thinking can devolve into just drifting along in life, having a few Dzogchen books on our shelf so that we can sort of hang on to some notion of still being connected to a tradition, but really not needing to do anything about it at all. At the other extreme, some people are so strongly attached to the need for practice that the idea of letting go of practice can be quite terrifying. If I stop, then I might never be able to begin again. It might just be the beginning of sliding into a meaningless and trivial life, which is the fear, of course, that has us practice in the first place. So from this mindset, practice is a non-negotiable imperative. Ideally, we should be practicing 24/7. It can become more important than realizing Buddha nature. So how does practice relate to the path? The path comes into the picture at an early age. Mummy, let's take this path. How much longer before we reach the end? We frame our experience around being somewhere on a path, having arrived at an interim stage, or having traveled the full distance with nowhere further to go. The path, however, is a construction. I'm going forward. I'm making progress with this. I've reached an impasse. I've lost the space I was in. I need to adjust my practice. I should add a Dzogchen overlay to my practice to make it a bit smoother, take the hard edges out of it. These are all thoughts, simply thoughts, movements in the mind based on dualistic concepts, moving forwards, moving backwards. I'm there, I'm not there. On the path, there are lots of options too. Most notions of a path assume that we're functioning within a causal domain, a domain of complex causal connections in which some activities of our body and mind can have effects in terms of producing spiritual experiences, structured insights, clarity of mind, samadhi, states of concentration, bliss, visions, love, compassion, and so on. These are conditioned states, so it makes sense that specific practices can produce them. But what about the realization of emptiness, rigpa, the pure mind itself, which are just different names for the same uncaused, unconditioned sphere of Buddha mind? How does practice relate to this state, which is contentless and unqualified? Let's look at how realization occurs within the Prajna Paramita tradition, which offers a sort of a direct readout of how things are from the Buddha mind perspective. How does Buddha mind arise in this moment? In fact, it doesn't arise. The Buddha mind doesn't gradually come into being, nor is it suddenly here in a way that it wasn't an instant ago. The idea that it arises instantly is weird. There's nothing here that has arisen. This empty presence has no structure. There is nothing that wasn't here that suddenly is, or any structure that was here that suddenly disappeared. This isn't like this. This isn't defined by the presence or absence of anything. So it's not instantaneous in the sense that it happens in an instant. It's just here, recognized in this moment. Then does it arise gradually? Clearly, it doesn't. How can a non-thing, something without any content, become more obvious and clear? The same applies to the idea of being distracted from this. We can't be distracted from this because there's nothing to be distracted from. There are no distractions. If we think we've become distracted, we can see that's impossible. There's no discernible process of becoming distracted from awareness. If we see this, we are back here in undistracted awareness. What does happen is that we can have longer moments of abiding in this, in the totality of the Buddha mind, by seeing that there's no real process of gaining it or losing it. These are just constructions. So where does this come from? The Buddha mind. Let's tune into this, into the unstained mind, the mind itself, not our conditioned mind, but awareness itself. The ubiquitous capacity to receive thoughts, feelings, and sensations exactly as they are without distortion. The mind that's contentless, that isn't itself an idea or experience. Where does this come from? How does it arise? Is there something behind this space that produces it, or is it just here for no reason at all? Does it have a source or origin? Is this a blessing from the guru, a dakini, or a siddha, or is there no reason? Perhaps it's just uncaused and sourceless. So again, let the space, our Buddha mind, answer these questions. Let's listen. Let's just listen. How interesting. It isn't saying anything. It's not giving us an answer. What does this mean? Perhaps there is no answer. Buddha mind has nothing to say about these issues. It seems it doesn't have anything to say about anything. This is the wordless teaching of the Buddhas, the silent transmission that says everything that really needs to be said, which is nothing at all. Let's listen some more, not with our thinking mind, for we might be mistaken by this and think that the Buddha mind is talking to us. So again, the question, where does this come from? What lies behind it? There's nothing behind this. There's nothing in front of it either. There's no front or behind. What is this? It's no mind, Buddha mind, contentless awareness, whatever words we want to use to identify this. It's not our Buddha mind, since we are just thoughts in this. Me, I, mine. Just to go back to where we were a little earlier, when we were discussing the two extreme relationships we can have to practice, extreme of full-blown practice or just hanging out, believing that practice is counterproductive. Somewhere within these extremes, we can discover the practice of no practice. This isn't a middle path, since this is another form of practice following the middle way. Rather, we discover the intended fruition point of all practice, in fact, of everything we do in life. We arrive in a space where there is nowhere further to go and no possibility of regressing because there are no reference points. We can't say where we are and we don't need to. And this is how we know we've arrived at the point of no arrival. We're just here, content, unique, and unfindable. This is effortless, uncontrived, unfabricated, natural, undistracted meditation. It's impossible to be distracted in this state because there's nothing to be distracted from. Nothing can obscure this or distort it because it is contentless. There's a subtlety to arriving at this place and remaining here undistractedly. If we're trying to get somewhere through our practice of no practice, perhaps thinking that this is the ultimate practice, this is not no practice. Non-meditation doesn't mean we aren't meditating. It means there's no need to meditate, no need for a contrived practice that's designed to get us somewhere because we are already here. Where, you might say? That's a good question. We're in the place that meditation is designed to reveal. You could say we're here because we're nowhere. Well, not exactly. We're here and not here at the same time. And even this isn't the best way to talk about where we are because there's still a duality in the picture. We are neither here nor not here. Okay, that's enough of me talking. Now I have two questions for you to begin our conversation. The first is, where are you now? And the second is, if you're here, which is nowhere, here without a reference point, here not able to say where here is, how did you get here?
Are you wanting an answer, Peter?
A response, yes, Andrew. Hi.
I didn't get here. I couldn't be anywhere else.
Thank you. So there was no process of getting here.
Hi, I'm far from being an expert, but I'm
Who
wondering.
is talking?
I'm Brian Fleming.
Okay, I'm just trying to identify you on
Okay,
the screen.
yeah, I'm in a
Okay, I see. Yeah, I've got you.
jacket sort of looking thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder whether non-duality is itself a form of dualistic thinking. So
Yes, can be.
okay,
If it's non-duality in contrast to duality, it is.
right.
Yes.
Because you set up a number of comparisons of one thing with another, it seems to me, but I don't want to be judgmental because I'm a neophyte. So I say it with without being a knowledgeable person about it.
Yeah, I think non-dual really means neither one nor many.
Uh-huh. Right. So, I mean,
It's a reality. It's
yeah.
talking about a reality that is neither divisible nor indivisible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think I just should let other people go because I don't want to distract people who have more informed backgrounds.
Hi, this is Bruce Nygren.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Peter. These questions about what is here and what here is only lead me to be more here without knowing what that is. And yet, within the sphere of that, there's a joy. There's a radiance. There's there's love.
Mm,
So I don't know what that's about, but I know that it is.
hmm
And there really isn't a whole lot more I could say about that. Except to express my gratitude.
Mhm.
I, re- I really appreciate your ability to articulate. But you can't see me. I'm invisible. So
Okay,
don't even try.
wonderful. Although if
Okay.
I couldn't see
Yeah.
you uh, as the me, as the I anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I really
Right.
appreciate your ability to articulate because it's something like you said, it's you can't really speak it. it it
Mm,
exists and we create all the words around it, right?
we
Our
do.
mind our mind creates all the "Ah," enlightenment and
Yeah,
you know
so much.
awakening and it's so I mean it is really funny that they're right. I mean, when they say when you know you just what can you do but laugh, right? Because
Yeah.
we just are complicated minds
Yeah.
here.
Busy, busy, busy.
Yeah,
Mm.
and afraid of not being busy, afraid of
Right.
what what is, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you. I
Yeah,
just want to
nothing
say
to
I've heard
do,
about
going nowhere. Yeah. How
heard
wonderful.
about
Thank you. Thank
thank
you
you.
very
I
much.
heard about you the 90s. I've heard of you when you were in Mill Valley, right? You were
Right.
in Mill Valley, right?
Yeah,
California.
I
Yeah,
was.
I've heard it. I've heard about you all these years. That's a lot of years, like
Yeah,
30 or more years. And this is the
right.
first time I'm seeing you and hearing you. So all I can say is, wow, thank you for all the work you've been doing all this time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for bridging that period of time for me. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm in California now, not far from Mill Valley. So that's the funny part. I mean, you know, you're there far away.
Yeah.
So.
Peter, this is Lynn.
Yes.
Can you see
Can
me?
I see you, or are you also invisible?
No, you can see me. I have a black sweater on.
Can you show your hand, wave your hand? Okay,
Okay.
great. Lynn, yes,
Hello.
got you.
Hello.
Hi.
And thank you for doing this with all of us. It's fabulous. I am also fairly new. I've heard you speak once or twice, but I've never had any active coursework with you or training. My experience of the last exercise was that I went into a habituated search. Like I was seeking, and I realized I was out here seeking. And when I dropped that and realized that I am here and not here, just like out there is not out there, and that it's all enmeshed.
Yeah.
Everything settled. It was still, I felt a great sense of spaciousness, and it was almost like a dissolution of self in a way.
Yeah.
It was peaceful.
Right. Yes. Yeah, yeah. It is. Lovely. Yeah.
So to open without opening.
Yeah, you don't, when you don't have to do anything, when it's here for us. And just that openness and the peace and serenity and the nothing to protect, nothing to defend, just pure being is beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I came on an hour late because I always get my times mixed up when it's in another time zone. And I didn't hear any of the exercises and I didn't really know what was going on. But I immediately fell into a place that felt like home and I was glad to be here.
David, lovely. Thank you for being here. From the East Coast. Yeah, great.
Yes, I'm from the East Coast.
Yeah.
And just looking around, one of the things that felt more like home than I can describe are the smiles on people's faces.
Right.
And when you talk, the smile on your face. So I don't know what to say about it, what it is, but I'm here, and I would like to say it's just wonderful, and thank you all.
Thank you, David.
Hello, Peter. This is Vanessa Nagel, Mike Nagel's wife.
Yes, Vanessa.
Good to see you again. I remember thinking when you asked where we were, how Michael would always just say, "I'm here. I'm always here."
Mm.
And so when you asked that question, that's what came to mind, was that I'm always here. I'm always present, I guess, is another way to maybe say it, is that I'm present moment.
Mm. 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 Mm.
Hello, Peter. Can you see me?
Can you indicate? Put your hand up or?
Oh, there. Okay.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Or not doing this. uh, um, I feel very much dancing in very many paradoxes. My body-mind system appears to be here. And I have my senses inform me of presence, of being present. My awareness, I'm aware of presence. But if I ask myself who is here, there is no answer. There is really I'm not able to find the one who's here.
Right.
In just beingness, just being here. Yeah. Yet I'm aware of my relative self, the self of hurts and wounds and past traumas. And yet and I know that that can be better integrated. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I think the integration happens by being here. It's being here in the presence of whatever is arising without resistance. It's sometimes called healing through the power of emptiness. It's not something different that needs to be done. But here in that state of being and empty and open inside, not being able to find a self, yet the history of our existence, of our life, is here as well. And letting that come in but in a way that's no longer or not in this moment producing a perturbance.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Joel, thank you.
Peter, I have another question for you.
Yes.
Do you think it's possible for the non-dual to obscure the dual? I.e., in Zen Buddhist practice, we sometimes talked about the precepts as having three different dimensions, the literal, and then the relational, which is the relative or the dual, and the non-dual. We speak like from the non-dual perspective, it's impossible to hurt anybody, but from the dualistic perspective, we can. So, and we do know, in the history of Buddhism in the West, there's been quite a few scandals around alcohol and sexuality. So do you think it's possible for the non-dual to obscure the dual?
No, I think the non-dual is as a contentless domain of pure awareness, can't obscure anything. It doesn't have that capacity. It doesn't have really the capacity to do anything.
Very good. So it's our conceptualization of the non-dual which can obscure it. Okay.
Peter.
Yes.
My name is Carrie, and I'm
Hi, Carrie. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. So there's a sense of in terms of the where are you now or where am I now? There's a sense of being in time and space in a body that's and allows for this dialogue, and then being nowhere and being everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, it is.
And I can sense how I'm, as most of us are, conditioned to only really focus on being in time and space and locatable. And then, at least here, there's somewhat more comfort in recognizing or experiencing being no one and nothing. And then I can almost like feel a certain hesitation around accessing the everyone and everything, because it feels sort of like coming out and embracing everything.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's inclusive. It's all inclusive. Yes, there's no boundary, no barrier. So, yes, it is a very intimate and beautiful way of relating, of being in the world. Yeah.
I think that's what moved me to speak, because I'm aware in a relative dimension we may be presented, say, through the news or other sources of things that might prompt us or me to turn away from the world or humanity. And this, and your offering in particular, and the people that are here that are gathered together in this way with this exploration, it feels like something responds here that would like to be part of this.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Lovely.
So thank you for your orientation and invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much for your sharing.
Hi, Peter. This is Jim here.
Hi, Jim.
There we go. Just something about Carrie's openness and the fluidity of David's appreciation without knowing what the questions are. Feels like I want to celebrate that. And the delicious gratitude for your teachings, your being, your presence, the truth of that, as reflected in this gathering right now. I feel like it's one of those you know how before every sutra there's a gathering,
Mhm.
and we're doing it.
Yeah.
So much
Yeah.
gratitude
Yeah.
to you, much
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. Jim.
Beautiful to feel the strength of the I want to say stream of beneficence.
Mm.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
much
Jim.
bigger than we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It is. It is. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter.
Hi,
Diane
Diane.
here. So I just wanted to say my great appreciation for your teachings, and that it is so important that we have these teachings at this time for the betterment of all beings.
Mm.
So thank you for
Mm.
being in the middle of the night for you.
Mm.
Yeah. Wonderful to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken, who's sort of on the verge, would like to, but there's some hesitancy for whatever reason, because I don't want anyone to leave having wished they had shared something, asked a question, and not having done it. Because I like everyone to be complete. We're complete now, complete in the moment. But then things can happen and we can feel incomplete. I should have said something. So,
Yeah, Peter,
yes.
it's David.
Yes, David.
So good to see you, Peter. So
Great
good.
to see you.
Yeah, I've missed you since you were here. And it's such a blessing to me to be in this meeting, to hear you teach. And I've had a real delightful time kicking language around. And this idea of being here and not here. And it has really broken open for me a sense of freedom to jettison all of the concepts and language that we drag around with us, and to be nowhere and to be no one, to be just to be, and not even not being, yeah. And so, and I must say, this is such a delightful time so many happy faces. And it's the quietest party I think I've ever been to. So many blessings to you.
Yeah, yeah. And to you.
So good
and
to
Jerry.
see
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Annette, you need to unmute.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Peter. Yes. This is my first time with you, though you were with me for a very long time.
Okay.
And I wanted to express my appreciation for you and for all that you bring to us. You have brought me very, very dear people in my world through the radio groups. And you have brought a very deep blessing, a very deep blessing with your teachings. And you are with me every day. I wanted
to. Wow. Annette. Yeah, I'm really, really touched. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm very pleased. I'm very happy. Thank you.
Peter, this is Jan, and I just wanted to recommend to everyone to see the movie Awareness. It's really quite fabulous. It's such a transmission of your deepest teachings, and I listen to it every day almost, and it just opens up more and more and more every time I listen to it and watch it. I think it's really a masterpiece. So I really think if people haven't seen that, make an effort to find it's on the online. You can watch it for free, and you can also donate to the wonderful people that put it together. And it really has expanded me greatly. So thank you for that, Peter. You and Michael did a really quite a magnificent creative piece there, and something that can really point all of us to this sense of simple being and effortlessness. It's just quite lovely.
Thank you.
I've put a link in the chat box to the documentary. For anyone.
Oh, yeah. Great. Great.
Peter, this is Jerry. And all I can say is just love and gratitude. Thank you so much. So many years together, and for what you brought to our community here, and the wonderful and through like your dancing in this sessions that we used to have for people all over, that even brought more. And then today it's like, look at this. I mean, it's beautiful. So just so much gratitude.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, so we're coming up to time. I know we started late. Thank you very much for your patience with that complex beginning technology. Yeah. And a delight to be with you. Those who I know and those who I don't, who I'm getting to know. And Wangmo, thank you very, very much for inviting me, Ron and you inviting me, and for the organization of this, which from your side was just superb. And I look forward to Yes, seeing people in person again when that can happen. That will be beautiful. So,
Peter, do these gatherings take place on a regular basis now? Or is there a place where
well,
we
this
can?
is organized by the Dharma College in Berkeley. And Wangmo, you might like to say a little about the college and this series, or Ron?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Peter, for such a beautiful evening that we could share together and to meet many of your friends and new friends that I'm connecting to in this virtual space. I always find it so amazing how we can connect through technology and to go very deep in our own lives through these precious teachings of the Dharma. I'm physically based in Berkeley, California, in a beautiful building that my father brought to life about, I think, 12 years ago. And it's called Dharma College. Of course, he came to the States in 1968, close to over 50 years ago, and established many centers that have a lineage going back to the Nyingma tradition, where he had a number of great masters, a lineage, a transmission. But Dharma College has a unique mission to bring these wisdom teachings into more of a Western format that may not have such a religious tone to it, even though we know where our roots are, which are very much based in these non-dual teachings. So when I heard from Ron about you, and of course I had known about your teachings too, I was very delighted that we could make this kind of connection. So we have a series of classes. They're 6 weeks long, and they start in September. So we have 5 terms, close to 8 to 10 classes, really to do about the mind and understanding mind and self, and bringing that into our daily life. I think for me, especially as the director, I'm very interested to bring these teachings that are so profound, especially at this time when there's so much polarity and so many opinions and viewpoints that break the heart open in places that cause us to be full of suffering, that we need to come back in more complete totality, as Peter speaks about, and to heal in the deepest way. So we are a school dedicated to that, I guess, in trying to bring more peace into our hearts and minds. And Ron Purser is also one of our faculty, and he teaches on time, space, and knowledge, a new series. And so I'd love for Ron to speak about our Wisdom Talk series, which was really inspired by Ron. And I'll let him take it over. But Peter, thank you so much. Lovely engagement and just a recounting of these profound Prajnaparamita teachings. And I just came from Odeon, where every evening at the stupa, we hear that chanting, and it is so profound. So as Westerners that have very deep roots in our own tradition, I think it's just sublime that we have this community here that can hear these teachings and can begin to integrate it into our lives and to feel that sense of silence and wholeness, and really engage with that in a deep way, and to bring community together. where we feel a sense of community, a togetherness, and a sense of camaraderie, a friendship in these teachings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Peter, thank you so much for staying up so late in France and Paris and to be with us. What stamina. And amazing. So thank you, everyone. I just wanted to make people aware that we have these wisdom talks usually about once a month. And we do have a couple coming up. I'll show you very quickly. We have 2 talks scheduled, one in April and one in May. Our first talk in April is going to be with Della Duncan here, who's in San Francisco, and she's going to speak on right livelihood. And she's a very interesting woman, has a very popular podcast called Upstream. And so that's our talk. It's going to be a hybrid talk, so it will be both at Dharma College in Berkeley for those that are local, but we'll also be on Zoom, and it'll be at 5 to 6:30 p.m., April 26th. And then in May, on May 3rd, we have another talk, both in Berkeley and on Zoom, with Dr. James Doty, who is a neuroscientist at Stanford, who founded the Center for Compassion and Altruistic Research and Education, CCARE, at Stanford University. He has a new book, several new books out, actually, so he may be talking about those as well. But he's a very, very interesting person. He's going to be focusing on the topic of compassion, how it relates to neurophysiology as well, given his expertise. So those will also be on Zoom. And if you want to learn more about these, you can go to the Dharma College website, which is in the link to the chat box. I believe it's just dharma-college.com. And you'll find on the public events page these 2 upcoming talks. And people seem to really enjoy them. And so we're going to continue these. We have some other people lined up soon as well. And for Peter, do you want to give out, what is your website, the one that people should go to if they want to learn more?
I think the one that's my name, peterfenner.com.
peterfenner.com.
The best one. Yeah, peterfenner.com.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, so let's everyone, we'll just go nowhere and say goodbye.
Right. Great.
Nowhere to go.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.